Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. So, picture this. Everyone's laughing around the table, passing roasted carrots and overcooked salmon, and out of nowhere, my wife raises her glass and says, if not for me, he'd still live with his mom. I don't know what stunned me more, how confidently she said it, or how everyone else just nodded like it was a well-known fact. Her uncle even chuckled and said, well, she's not wrong. I stared at my plate. I could hear the sound of someone's fork scraping against ceramic. My ears were ringing, but my face smiled like a coward. But then, I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the way she clinked glasses with her dad like she just won a trophy. And I looked straight at her and said, like you starting now? The silence that followed was so sharp. I swear even the neighbor's dog went quiet. She blinked. Everyone blinked. And for the first time since I'd known her, Riley didn't have a comeback. She just sat there with that half smirk still frozen on her face like someone had unplugged her battery. Her mother cleared her throat and asked who wanted dessert. No one answered. What they didn't know was that I already had a plan, because you don't reach that level of sarcasm without months of quiet suspicion and emotional bruising. I had watched Riley pull away inch by inch. Business dinners that didn't make sense. Strange names showing up on our shared streaming history. Perfume in the car that wasn't hers. And a locked drawer in her home office that she once told me held gift receipts. That drawer, I'd already opened it. Inside an envelope. Inside the envelope, a photo. And in that photo was her with someone who wasn't me, wearing something I bought her on our anniversary in a hotel I had paid for last month. And now she was mocking me in front of her whole family like I was some stray she rescued off a porch. No, not anymore. I got up before dessert was served. Walked inside, grabbed my keys, left the front door wide open behind me, and sat in my car just breathing. She texted me 10 minutes later. Really, I didn't reply, but I knew this wasn't just a bad dinner. This was the beginning of something worse, and I was finally ready to find out exactly how deep the betrayal went. I sat in the car that night longer than I should have. Engine off. Fingers clenched around the steering wheel like I was trying to squeeze out the last drop of patience. I wasn't angry. I was something worse. Numb, embarrassed, and oddly hollow. Not just because of what Riley said, but because she said it so freely, like it wasn't even cruel, like it was normal, like I was some mediocre guy she had scooped off the sidewalk and gifted to her parents as a success story. But what haunted me more than her words was what I already knew. I'd seen the photo 2 days earlier. I wasn't supposed to. That drawer in her home office had a cheap little lock that she never used before. Suddenly, it was locked. That's what tipped me off. She's not a cautious person. She forgets to close the fridge, leaves the car keys in the microwave, but that drawer locked tightly. So, when she left for her massage appointment and forgot her laptop bag, I knew something was up. I don't know why I had a paperclip in my back pocket. Fate, maybe, but it worked. Click, drawer opened, stack of receipts, some foreign currency I didn't recognize, and an envelope inside was a photo of her in a red dress I hadn't seen in over a year, standing beside a man in a hotel lobby. His hand was on her lower back. Not in a friendly way, not coworker, not friend. I stared at that photo for a full minute, hoping, praying it was photoshopped or a misunderstanding, but the timestamp in the corner said otherwise. She was supposed to be visiting her sick cousin that week. Her cousin lives in Oregon. The hotel in the photo, Boston. I didn't confront her. Couldn't. I'm not built like that. I just shut down. Pretended to forget. Nodded through conversations. Slept next to her, pretending I didn't already know. But her comment at dinner flipped something inside me. That snide little remark wasn't just rude, it was revealing. That's how she saw me. Pathetic, weak, like I was some clingy mistake she tolerated out of boredom. So, after I left that dinner, I didn't go for a drive. I went to my brother's place and handed him the photo. He's a divorce attorney. He just looked at me jaw tight and said one word, finally, and I asked him what he meant by that, and that's when things really started unraveling. My brother Silas isn't the sentimental type. He doesn't do "I told you so" or hug you when you're breaking down. He just pours you a drink and asks what took you so long. So when I handed him the photo and he said finally, I knew something was off. I asked what he meant and he said he'd been holding back for months trying to respect my marriage, even when it was clear I was the only one still acting married. He pulled open his desk drawer, pulled out a thin file folder and slid it across the table. Inside were printed screenshots, hotel booking confirmations, 2 airline itineraries, and even a restaurant bill for a place in Denver with a note that said, "Dessert was better than expected." Winky face or eye blinked at the letter. That's her handwriting. She used to leave those kinds of notes in my lunchbox when I worked nights. I used to think it was sweet. Now it felt like someone stabbing me with the dull edge of a memory. Silas leaned back and said one of my paralegal interns saw her 2 months ago at a conference with some guy. They were a little too close. She told me thought I'd want to know. I didn't believe it at first. Then I started paying attention. I asked why he didn't tell me sooner, and he just looked at me and said because you would have defended her, and he was right. I would have. I already had more times than I could count. When she came home smelling like a cologne I didn't wear, she said it was from a coworker's hug. When she missed our anniversary dinner, she claimed her flight got delayed. I believed her every time because I wanted to, because the alternative meant everything we built was fake or worse, real, but only to me. I asked Silas what I should do next. He said, "You already started, just don't stop now." He offered me his guest room, said I could stay as long as I needed. I texted Riley, "Don't wait up." She didn't respond. Not that night, not the next morning either. But by noon the following day, my phone buzzed. A single message from her. No apology, no question, just one sentence that told me exactly where this was heading. It said, "I assume this is about Boston." My hands went cold. She knew I knew and she wasn't sorry. I assume this is about Boston. That one sentence kept echoing in my head louder than any argument we ever had. It wasn't even a question. It was confirmation. Like she'd been sitting with that truth longer than I had. No denial, no shame, just acknowledgement. Like we were finally on the same page in a book I never knew she was writing behind my back. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen while my coffee went cold and my brother paced in the kitchen pretending not to watch me. After 10 minutes, I wrote back, "Yeah, and probably Denver and wherever else I missed." I waited. 3 dots popped up, then disappeared, then popped up again. "Finally, you weren't supposed to find that." Not "I'm sorry," not "let's talk." Just that like I tripped an alarm too early. That response hit me harder than the photo because it meant there was a plan, a timeline, and I had accidentally stepped on it. I told Silas everything, every weird gut feeling, every suspicious moment I had brushed off. He listened, nodded, and then said something I hadn't let myself think. "She's been emotionally gone a long time, Doug. She just didn't have the courage to tell you. That hurt." It was probably true, but it hurt. I went back to our house that afternoon, not to confront her, but to see what it felt like. Felt like walking into someone else's life. There was an overnight bag by the front door. My drawer in the bedroom was empty. Not hers, mine. I opened the closet and half my clothes were gone. My chargers were missing. My toothbrush was gone. It was like I had already moved out and she'd just been waiting for me to figure it out. Riley wasn't home. There was no note, no voice message, nothing. Just silence and space. And then I heard a buzz from the office. Her laptop was still on, not locked, open to her email. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. And what I found wasn't what I expected. There wasn't just one affair. There were 3 names, 3 threads of messages with the same tone. Flirty, familiar, cold, and all of them had one thing in common. They were making plans. None of them knew about the others, but all of them knew about me, and they all spoke about me like I was some obstacle she hadn't quite cleared yet. I scrolled through one thread and froze when I read the message. "He's passive. He won't do anything drastic. Just needs a gentle nudge out the door." That's when I realized I wasn't part of the story anymore. I was just the final inconvenience she hadn't managed to delete. The phrase "gentle nudge out the door" burned itself into my memory like it had been branded across my chest. It was written so casually, like I was a defective appliance she was scheduling for pickup. No guilt, no fear, just logistics. I stared at that sentence over and over until the words lost meaning, but the feeling didn't. That wasn't just betrayal, it was strategy. Riley had reduced me to a chore, and she wasn't even hiding it anymore. I closed the laptop with shaking hands, backed out of the room like it was filled with radiation, and sat on the couch in a house that technically still had my name on the mortgage. My throat was dry, but I didn't want water. I wanted, I don't even know, a reset button, a way to wake up and pretend this whole version of my life had just been a weird dream. But no matter how long I sat there, the truth didn't shift. My toothbrush was still gone, my drawers were still empty, her overnight bag was still near the door. But now I noticed the luggage tag had a different name on it. Her maiden name, Riley Green, not Riley Patterson, not mine. I started to piece together something uglier than infidelity erasure. She was slowly erasing me, detail by detail, until nothing of us remained. I got up and checked our closet again. All our framed photos had been pulled from the top shelf. I walked into the guest room and opened the linen chest. Our wedding album gone. The backup drive with our vacation videos gone. Even the little clay trinket we made together at that pottery class 2 years ago, missing. Riley wasn't just cheating. She was preparing for a life where I never existed. I should have been furious. I should have broken something. Screamed, flipped furniture, but all I felt was this quiet, suffocating grief. The kind of grief that creeps in when the person you love turns into someone you wouldn't recognize on the street. I texted Silas. "You were right. That's all I said." He wrote back immediately. "She moved on before you ever stood up from that dinner table." I didn't reply. I just walked out, closed the front door slowly, and realized I didn't have a key anymore. She had changed the locks without saying a word, not even a fight. Just like that, marriage over. And I was left standing on the porch of a house that used to be mine. With nowhere to go and a marriage that had already ended, I just hadn't been notified. 2 days later, I got a message that wasn't meant for me. It came through our shared family plans cloud account, the one Riley forgot I still had access to. A new iMessage popped up on the old iPad I kept in my car glove box, and I only saw it because I was looking for a charging cable. It lit up while I was sitting at a red light. I opened it without thinking, expecting maybe a spam code or something harmless. Instead, it was her Riley. She was texting someone named Grant Briefcase Cocktail Glass, and she said, "I think he finally figured it out. He's too slow for drama, though, so this should be clean." I pulled over immediately. My heart was pounding, my hands sweating against the steering wheel. "There was more," Grant had replied. "Then it's time. Come to LA this weekend. Let's make it official." Riley answered, "Flight's already booked. New number soon. Divorce on the way." My mouth went dry. Not just because she was running, but because she was running forward, not hiding. She had a plan, a future, one that didn't include me. And from the tone of their exchange, she'd convinced him I was some passive background character, like I just fade out silently, no resistance. I drove around for hours, not sure where I was going. I ended up parked outside the public library where we used to take Sunday walks and pretend we were the kind of couple who loved quiet things. It felt pathetic, but I sat there anyway, replaying everything. She hadn't just prepared for the end. She had rehearsed it, had backup plans, new phone, new city, new name. I didn't know who this Grant was, but judging from the emojis and the tone, he wasn't her first fallback. Probably not her second either. That night, I finally responded to her message from days earlier. Keep the house. I already packed what mattered. It wasn't true. I had nothing packed. But I wanted her to feel uncertain for once. Let her wonder what I knew, what I'd taken, what I was doing. Because the one thing I had left was the ability to move in silence just like she had. And for the first time in years, I stopped asking why would she do this, and started thinking, what happens if I don't disappear the way she expected? That question lit something in me. Not anger, not revenge, something quieter, sharper. She thought she'd erased me. She hadn't, not yet. The day after I saw the message to Grant, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. My instinct lately had been to avoid anything that might sting, but something in me said to pick up. A woman's voice on the other end asked, "Is this Douglas Patterson?" I hesitated. "Yes," she sighed in relief. "Hi, I'm calling from Bellevue Properties. You're still listed on the lease for the Venice Beach apartment. We just wanted to confirm if you and your wife would both be moving in next month or just her." My blood turned to ice. Venice Beach. That wasn't even on my radar. I'm sorry. What apartment? She paused. Unit 4B move-in scheduled for the 3rd. Riley Green signed the lease last week, but your name is still attached from the pre-approval. We just need your final confirmation for the utilities and rent split. I hung up. No explanation, no goodbye, just ended the call and stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my dashboard. She'd used my credit, my identity, my trust to secure her next life, and she didn't even bother to tell me. I was financing her escape, and I guess she assumed I'd be too slow, too timid, too emotionally paralyzed to do anything about it. Maybe she wasn't wrong, but something in me shifted in that moment. Not into rage or some grand plan of vengeance. No, that's not who I am, but clarity. Yeah, cold, humbling clarity. She hadn't been trying to hurt me. That would have required emotion. This was worse. She just removed me from the narrative entirely. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the victim. I was nothing. That night I drove to our old house. Not to go inside, I couldn't. But to sit across the street and look at it from the outside, lights were off. Her car wasn't in the driveway. For a second I wondered if she was already gone, already in California, already sipping wine on some rooftop patio with Grant. But then the porch light flicked on, and through the curtain I saw her not alone. A man stepped into view barefoot, laughing, holding a wine glass. Not Grant, someone else. She kissed him. I actually laughed. I sat in the car watching my wife kiss another man in the house we built together. And I laughed because it was almost poetic the way she stacked her future like a house of cards carefully with backup plans behind backup plans. And yet not a single one of those men knew she had 3 more in her pocket. Or maybe they did. Maybe they were just like me once, watching the red flags float by like party balloons, telling themselves, "It's fine, it's just a phase, she's just tired." Maybe I wasn't the first guy she erased. I was just the slowest to realize it. Strange, really. After everything she did, the secrecy, the messages, the way she casually cut me out of my own life. You'd think the final blow would be some dramatic scene, confrontation, yelling, tears. But there wasn't any of that because I never gave her the moment. I didn't storm into the house that night. I didn't call or text. I just let the truth settle inside me like cooling cement. And the next morning I did something quiet, intentional. I called the leasing company and removed my name from that Venice Beach apartment. Turns out since she forged the cosign, the application could be voided. Then I met with Silas, signed the initial paperwork, and set a date for mediation. No courtroom drama, no public spectacle, just a clean, emotionless unraveling of a life that had already come undone long before I noticed. But the real twist, 2 weeks later, I got a message from her. No greeting, just why are the utilities off? That's when I knew she still thought I'd play along, that I'd fund her exit, that I'd hold the door open as she walked out with someone else's hand in hers. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She'd already made it clear who she was. But for the first time in years, I saw who I was too. Not the weak, clingy man she described to her flings, not the guy she could push aside like furniture. I wasn't loud or flashy or dramatic, but I was still standing, and I walked away with my dignity, my peace, and no regrets about not sinking to her level. People like Riley always assume quiet means powerless, but quiet people don't explode. We disappear, and when we're gone, we don't come back. So yeah, I'm okay now. Not great, not healed, but okay. I moved into a small apartment with creaky floors and terrible lighting, but it's mine. No lies, no locked drawers, just space to breathe. I'm even thinking of adopting a dog. Silas says that's the most Doug thing I could do. He's probably right. Thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, hey, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. If you've ever lived through something wild like this, or, a piece of real relationship history that shocked you, drop it in the comments. Maybe a historical betrayal, a royal scandal, anything that left you speechless. We love hearing your stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true tales right here on Reddit Confessions. Stay sharp, stay kind, and don't ignore the quiet ones.